So, hang on a second. When I was practicing this, I struggled to know how to start, really. But there's various kind of bits of this that are around for me, and I'm going to try and pull them together, which might be awkward, but we'll have a go, see how we go on. And then I'm going to share with you a song, and then we're going to do a little exercise at the end, okay? You don't have to panic about the exercise at the end because it's just you. You don't have to speak to anybody, it's just you, okay? So it's nice and straightforward. Well, you and God, hopefully, you and Jesus, hopefully, that we'll do that with. But I was thinking how hard it is sometimes to be a Christian. How difficult it can be. And how sometimes you feel, I feel, I wouldn't tar you with the same brush as me, but I feel that I don't measure up to the standard that God would want me to be on. And then I look like this verse here, okay, which says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So just have a think about that for a second. The next part of the verse says, then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. And that's in Romans chapter 12. So this thing about do not conform, do not be the same, do not align yourself with the world. Why not? Because what is happening out there and what God wants to happen is kind of two entirely different things, you know. You look at the news and it's not difficult to see how people are greedy, people are killing each other, and it doesn't matter when you turn the news on, that's all it's filled with all the time, you know, different kind of things that are happening in the world. And then you say to yourself, what would God have me do? Well, God would have me walk in a path of peace, maybe. He would have me walk in a path that says I forgive people and those kind of things, you know, like the fruit of the Spirit. He would want to do that. But it's not just the really obvious stuff either. It's like, what about our attitudes that we hold? You know, for a long time, way back in the past, slavery was just accepted. And you say, how could people do that? How could they? But that was just an attitude and everybody seemed to hold it. Do you know what I mean? So we've kind of moved forward in some of the attitudes, but the attitudes of this world are a lot about being self-centered. Me, yeah? Get what you can, get the most you can, get the most money you can, all that kind of stuff. And that attitude, it rubs off on us. There's kind of no doubt about that, you know. And it might rub off in subtle ways, you know, like you say to yourself, well, I'm wearing a pair of nice shoes or something, you know. You think, well, these are, I don't know, who makes shoes? Whoever makes shoes, Italian shoes, yeah? Or you're wearing a pair of Gucci sunglasses or something. Well, why are you wearing those? Because the world says these are the best. These are, you know, there's a kind of attitude about those kind of things. So there's a materialism that goes with that. But deeper than that, there's a kind of attitude about the world that says, you know, I just want everything from me. Stand up for me, stand up for my rights, all that kind of stuff. And there's a whole range of things. You can think about all that for yourself. And God's will is different. There's kind of no doubt. So when God says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then you will know what God's will is. And that was the bit I was kind of struggling with. How do I know what God's will is? I came across this little thing here. I get sent a thing on the emails, and this turned up on it. Okay, so it says this: be what you is, and not what you ain't. When you is what you ain't what you is. I thought, work that one out a little bit. Okay, so what they're saying is there's a true self. You have a true self inside, and that's what we want to see coming out. Okay, it's not because you're with somebody and you think I should be reacting in a certain way or whatever. You want to see something coming out that's of God rather than of the world. Actually, this guy wasn't the only one. This guy here, a guy called Shakespeare, you maybe heard of him? Heard of Shakespeare? Yep, so have I. Haven't read very much of his stuff, to be fair. Did a couple of things at school and pretty much left it at that. But this is one of the quotes: "To your own self be true." Okay. Now, God's will for you is that the person that he made you, he wants to see that person, your own true self. He wants to see that person. He doesn't want to see the person who's being pushed around a little bit by the attitudes and things in the world. He wants to see the true person. The scriptures around like this, okay, which says God will fulfill his purpose for me. You think, that's great. That's really good. And I always end up having a kind of question after that. And my question is, well, why can't I see God's will for my life? Do you know what God's will is for your life? So the Bible said that God has a purpose for your life. He has a plan for your life. Do you know what it is? Are you very clear on it? Can you see the direction? Well, notionally we've got an idea, well, we're kind of going in that way. Are we absolutely sure we're directly on the path? I'm not, I'm just not entirely convinced that I'm doing everything that God would want me to do. And I certainly know there's times I'm not. I certainly know there's times I get dragged into all sorts of other things, and I know I'm not doing that. So the kind of question came to me then, there's one other thing, first of all. Why don't we know what God's will is for our lives? What stops us understanding what God's will is for our lives? So I put this up, didn't write anything on it, just so that you can get an idea that we could make a list together. So I could have some suggestions, and you could have some suggestions. We could make a list. So what would stop me doing exactly what God wants me to do? What would do that? Any thoughts for you? What would you think would stop you doing things, doing God's will, being in God's will, doing the things he wants you to do? What would stop you, do you think? Any ideas? Sorry? We don't listen? Yeah, absolutely. So we don't listen. Okay, absolutely. Yes. So attitudes are, some of the attitudes that we hold are, absolutely, yes indeed. Yeah. Greed, yeah. Again, another attitude that we have, you see. We don't trust him? Yeah, absolutely. All of those kind of things. I think there's a few more that, because I had the opportunity to think about it, obviously, so I've got a couple more. I always think sometimes there's conflict in our lives. We're conflicted about, will God do this or not do this? Can I trust him? Don't I trust him? That's what Aileen was just saying there. And then we have doubt in our head. And then there's things like, what have people said to us in the past? Things like, you're no good. And they slag us off. And those words are hard to get rid of. You hear those words, and those words stick in your head sometimes. Sorry, I've just moved on a little bit there. It's okay. We've done that. Right. So yes, those words stick in our head. So we have doubts and we have all of this kind of stuff over us, And that's hard to get away from. Okay. Let me just remind ourselves what the Bible said, though. So the Bible said, be transformed. Yes? That was the verse. Be transformed. Okay. I was thinking about, how do you explain transformed? What does transformed mean? And I was thinking about transformers. Anybody know Mark, do you know what a transformer is? What? You don't? Okay. Do you know what a transformer is? No? No? You're joking. Gregoire, tell them what a transformer is. Okay, right, okay. Sorry. What? That's way above our level. Way above our level. Okay, it's a toy. Correct. Or the other way around. So, you start with a car. Have you not seen a Transformer? Have you not seen a movie of the Transformers? I can't believe that. So you start with a car, And this car grows into this fighting machine, this huge fighting machine. It's still an electrical device. Well done. Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to keep it simple here. It's great. So, but God says, see that change? See all the components, supposedly, that this car transforms into something different. And all the bits that are needed to transform you is already in you. And God just needs to make that transformation. Okay? That's what he needs to do. Make that transformation. Okay. So how? How does he do this? You know, because that sounds all very nice, all very well and good. I would love to be transformed. So how am I going to do the transforming? Okay. Let me go back to the beginning, because I like to keep things simple, as I said. I like things very easy, all right? So what do you think the first thing we can do to try and be transformed is? Simple things. No, it's not clever stuff, right? It's the simple stuff, okay? Okay, let me share this with you then. Do it this way. One, you could read the Bible. Oh, right, that's a thought, isn't it? Hang on a minute. If I want to know what God's will is, well, he wrote it down somewhere. He wrote it down in the Bible. So why don't we just pick up a Bible, have a read at it? Now, don't get me wrong, even that's not simple, okay? But you can read the Bible and you think, I'm getting nothing from this. But you just read it a little bit, day by day, and just ask God to open up the Bible to you. Ask him to do it. Don't struggle with it yourself. Just say, just open up the Bible to me. Okay? All right. 1, 2. Talk to God. Okay. What do you think, talking to God? We normally call it another word, do we? We call it prayer. But I purposely use this expression, talk to God, because I think that's sometimes what it is. Prayer you have this image of having to give this quiet place and kneel down and put your hands together and shut your eyes and pray for an hour. It's not what prayer is. You know, prayer's it can be like a conversation. You can do it anywhere, okay? So prayer is just talk to God any way you want. He knows you, so there's no point in trying to drag out all the big words to impress him. He knows you don't know them. You know, he knows that you talk in a different way. Just talk the way you would normally talk and talk to God, okay? Nice and easy. And do it quite regularly. Here's a thought. This one's a hard one. Listen. You know, somebody said that before. Listen, didn't you? Listen. And I think that's exactly right. When we're talking, it can be a two-way conversation. But in a conversation, I talk, you listen, and then you talk and I listen. It goes back and forward. So if we're not kind of listening, we don't have the opportunity to hear. Okay. I find this, for me, this is quite an important one for me. This is how a lot of the time God speaks to me, and I get quite kind of emotional about a lot of the stuff. I've worshipped stuff on a fair amount of the time. I have loads of other stuff on as well, but I've worshipped stuff on a fair amount of the time. And when I come to do stuff for something, very often there are words that just jump out. Now, I could have sung these songs 100 times, 200 times, just loads and loads, and suddenly there's a word there, or a phrase that says, this is for you today, you know, and God is like that. And there's something else about worship that does something internally to you. You know, it draws something out of your spirit, you know, that you want to react to things. I don't know how else to explain that. That's how I feel about it, though. Okay, and then the last one. Maybe you could listen to someone else. Maybe they could point you in the direction. You know, we have talks like this on a Sunday morning, so you get the opportunity for somebody to come and explain something. Quite a lot of the time, Gordon's up and he's explaining things, so you can listen to what he's saying, or other people as they come along as well. But not just like that. I was thinking of, yeah, there's a time to do this, but there's a time to sit round the table and say, how would I do this? How would I go on with this? Somebody said to me one time, so he said, I pray every day. I said, that's great. I said, I pray for the same thing. I pray for my family, you know, one by one. And I pray for my wife, and I pray for my work, and I pray for my colleagues, and I pray for this, that, and the other. I says, and that, you know, I do it in the car when I'm on the way to work, and that takes me my whole journey to work. I said, fantastic. I says, you know, he says, but nothing changes, it's all the same. Why can't I do something different? And the only thing I could come up with is, why don't you say to God, see that prayer that I pray every day? Can you just take that as read and we'll go on to something else and we'll talk about something else? We'll talk about what's real to me. Okay? Not that I want you not to do all those other things, but actually I'm struggling. And maybe that's what you wanted to say to God, rather than, I hope my wife's okay and my kids are okay, my job's okay, and my dad going, you know, all these things. That's fine. There's a place for all of that. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes it's just to say to God, I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do. And you need to help. So that's some of the basic stuff, okay? The complex stuff we'll leave to somebody else, and we'll do the basic stuff. All right? That seems fair, doesn't it? Okay. I'm going to play a song here. It's a little bit, I have to apologize, it's a little bit muffled through the speakers. It doesn't come out as well. But we'll see how we get on with it. There are a number of words that I want you to listen to, because it's going to be, as we go further into our little exercise in a few minutes' time, I would want you just to think about the words that are here. Okay, the words are, we're engaging with God just as I am. Okay? Not anything clever, not anything put on. When you ain't what you is what you ain't, kind of thing, right? Whatever way around that is, I've now forgotten how that goes. But you get the idea, right? We're not trying to be something different with God, we're trying to be who I am. And He already knows, so let's do it that way. Just as I am. And then He says, with all my conflicts and all my doubts. Now, if you don't have conflicts in your life, difficulties, problems, and doubts, then you're much better than I am, because I've got that all the time. Okay, just in there all the time. And as the older I get, the more I get these kind of things. But God knows, and I'm going to bring them to Him. He says something different. He says, I'm going to pardon you. So that's for like sin and stuff. I'm going to cleanse you. There's another one, I'm going to take that and wipe it away. I'm going to relieve all that suffering that you feel. See that pain that you've got in your heart, in your life, that you're struggling with and you can't let out and you can't let go? That's what God says. I'm going to relieve that. And then He's going to say, there are maybe barriers to you understanding and listening and what to me. I'm going to break them down. In fact, I have broken them down. Let me show you. And then our response is, through the song, our response is, I come. Okay? So, this is on YouTube, so there's like a 3-second ad that I'm going to try and switch off right at the beginning. So, we'll see how this works out. That's handy. So what I'd like to do then, I'd like to do this little exercise. So the idea is, we can talk about God, and we can talk about Jesus, or we can try and experience something of God, and experience something about Jesus in our lives. And that's what we want to try and do today. So some of the songs we sung earlier on, things like, your Spirit's anointing I desire. Okay? I really want that. Or just one touch from the King changes everything. Things like that. That song there, when it says, I'm just coming to you and I want you to kind of just deal with things, and he's promised to do that. So what we're going to do is, this exercise is called the Garden of Your Heart, and I want you to use your imagination. All right? It's like, Elaine was talking in the car today. He said it's like, you can say it was like having a dream. Yeah? So you can see things in your dreams like that, you know? Or, what was the other thing you said? You said something else. Yeah, you imagine. Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So, yeah. So when, exactly that, if you heard what Elaine said, you know, when someone's talking, you've got a picture running in your head. Okay. So I'd like to do that with you this morning. And the idea is that we invite Jesus into the garden of your heart. So what I'll do is I'll tell you what I'm going to do, okay, and then we'll just give a little bit of time to do that. So what I want you to do is to imagine Jesus. Okay. So you got a picture of Jesus in your mind, and that's absolutely fine. So with Jesus, you're always safe. Okay? Nothing can harm you when Jesus is there. He's promised he'll look after you. So even in your mind, Jesus is there. Nothing can harm you there. Okay? What you want to do is you want to take Jesus by the hand, or he'll take you by the hand, and just show him the garden, your garden, the garden of your heart. This is your own personal garden. Doesn't matter what it looks like. No problem. Take him into the garden of your heart. When you're in that garden, just show him round the garden. Talk to him about different things that are happening in your garden. And you may see things that are not right in the garden. You may see weeds that are growing in places and things like that, or thorns and thistles, all that kind of stuff. What I would like to do is just to say to Jesus what these thorns and thistles are. What do they represent in your heart? Okay, so you're imagining you've got a garden, Jesus is with you. You're looking around the garden and things aren't right, and you see a thorn, you say, that's my pain from when I lost my mum or something, or that's a time when someone was nasty to me, or that was when I did something really wrong, or whatever it is. You can decide yourself. I just want you to grasp that and give it to Jesus. Okay? Grasp it and give it to Jesus. And you can take as long as you want to do this, okay? So that's what I'll just talk you through that again. So probably best if you just close your eyes. Okay, so we just all close our eyes together, so then you can just concentrate on yourself. No one else, doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. It's all inside your head, you're not hearing anything. That'll be fine. And in a little while I'll just play that song over for us, okay? So, let's have a think. Let's see. Let's just imagine Jesus. Just imagine Jesus and his gentleness and his loveliness and his very peaceful persona. But you know behind that he's really powerful, and he's just for you. Gave his life for you, and he's there and he's standing, he's telling you he loves you. And so you've got that relationship with Jesus. So what I want you to do is I want you to take Jesus into your garden. So you find your garden. Just have a look and say, what is my garden? There it is there. Jesus, I want you to come into my garden with me. Just show him round your garden. Show him the bits you like. But also notice there are other bits that are not as you would want them to be. So when Jesus asks you, what are those parts? Tell him what those parts are to you. as you start to identify some of those things, just pull them up and give them to Jesus and ask him to deal with that for you and see what he does with that. Don't worry too much if you can't see a lot of stuff. Just be in the presence of Jesus. That in itself is such a huge thing. Listen to what he's saying. And as you've made your way around different parts of the garden, if you started to identify one or two things and pull these up and give them to Jesus, as I said, just watch what he's doing with them. And when you're ready, you can come back round and you can come out and just sit for a short while with Jesus in the presence of the one who loves you. Just as I am, just as I am, without one plea, but that thy blood was shed for me, and that thou bidst me come to thee, O Lamb of God. I come, I come, just as I am, but tossed about with all my conflict, all my doubts, fightings and fears within, without, O Lamb, God, I come, I come. Jesus, take all